Thank you for joining us today. My name is Katie Monahan, and I'm Communications Strategist here at the Ohio Arts Council. And we're really pleased to partner with our friends over at the National Endowment for the Arts to present today's webinar, Public Funding Resources, an NEA and OAC Convening. I'm excited to introduce today's presenters. Josh Maffey, the Senior Advisor to the Office of the Senior Deputy Chairman for the National Endowment for the Arts, and Justin Nigro, the Public Affairs and Operations Director here at the OAC. Josh and Justin are here to talk about funding opportunities and resources available for arts organizations at both the federal and state levels, and of course to answer any questions that you may have for them. And with that, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to hand things over to Josh so we can learn more about the funding opportunities and resources that the National Endowment for the Arts has to offer. So Josh, thank you so much for being here today. I will let you take it from here.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks, first of all, to Donna Collins, Katie, and Justin, and everybody at the Ohio Arts Council for having me here today. It's a great opportunity for all of us to get together and talk about the current state of issues that we have, what the arts agency at the National Endowment for the Arts can offer you, and just initiatives that we have with the endowment. So first of all, I would like to start off with a video from Chairman Marianne Carter. She put together a little welcome video for everyone. So I just wanted to let that play and then I'll go into my presentation.
Hello, Ohio. Thank you for joining this virtual town hall. Well, the pandemic has caused devastation across America, especially throughout the arts sector. Meeting together like this is as important as ever. In 2019, between staff and myself, we personally visited all 50 states. And if not for the pandemic, we would have done the same this year. But we'll get back out there when the time is right. In the meantime, this town hall meeting, like many other virtual meetings we have scheduled, is a terrific forum for us to stay connected. Thanks again for joining us today. Josh, take it away.
Well, first of all, I wanted to touch upon a little bit in the next couple slides about COVID-19, the impact that it's had on everyone in the world, basically, but especially in the arts and field. So obviously we had job loss, economic loss, and we had national surveys in the field to see about what was going on in the fields as far as recovery and the impact on things. Currently, the employment statistics indicate that between March and April, when this first started in 2020, unemployment in the arts, entertainment, and recreation sector fell from roughly 2.4 million jobs to about 1.1 million jobs, which is a drop in 54.1%, which is a crazy number. So that's why another reason why we did the national surveys of organizations out in the field to get their perspective on the impact and the recovery of everything. So go to the next slide. So the CARES Act, which was, we were very grateful and thankful for Congress to pass the CARES Act piece of legislation. And in that, the Arts Endowment received $75 million of the CARES Act grant. And in 18 days after the president signed this into law, we had $30 million that went out directly to the states and regions. That's almost unheard of. The White House was very impressed by the National Endowment for the Arts for working so hard to get that money out to our people to help save the jobs. And $45 million went directly to art organizations. We were able to give 855 direct grants that were awarded in July 1st. And these grants were designated to save jobs. If you had already applied for a grant with the Arts Endowment, you were able to apply also for this CARES Act grant, where typically you're only allowed to apply once per year for a grant. So that was a great addition to the guidelines that Congress put into place. So that was very helpful. Next slide. This slide shows a map, obviously, of the state and regional partnerships. The National Endowment for the Arts offers partnership agreement grants to 50 designated state art agencies, U.S. territories, and 6 national or regional art organizations. The color coding on this map puts your state in place with its regional arts organization. So you can find your state and find what regional art organization you would belong to. And when Congress sets out the budget every year, and we receive our budget at the Arts Endowment, 40% of that is legally goes out directly to the states and regions. So just like the CARES Act grants, we had $30 million that went out. If once we get our final budgeting for the year, 40% of that budget goes directly out to the states and regions. So it's great. Next slide. These are the 15 art disciplines that you can choose from to apply for a grant with the National Endowment for the Arts. If you go to arts.gov, which is our website, you can look up a couple different things that I want to talk about. One, you can, in the tab version of it, you'll find the artistic fields, which shows all of these art disciplines. You will choose your art discipline that you want to fill out a grant for, or an application for. And that also will put you in touch with someone from the field. It will give you a name, a person's name, email, and phone number that you can reach out to for questions. And then also, if you're on our website in the search engine, I suggest to go to the 2020 guide. Now, in the 2020 guide, you would go to page 20 and 21, and that also lists out all of these 15 disciplines, and it gives you the staff member's name, or contact information like their phone number and email. And one of the big things with Chairman Carter at the agency is her main priority is access to the arts and access to our agency. And as I go along and do some of these presentations, I hear sometimes that from the people in the field that they're worried about contacting those of us at the agency because they feel like if they contact us to go through the application process with them, that will hurt their chances of receiving a grant. And I'll talk a little bit about grant panels and everything in a little bit, but that's totally false and not true. They're there to help you, and we want to help you, and we want to make you successful in your application process. So utilize all of the contacts that you can get, and they usually within 24 hours to 48 hours, it's probably a long 48 hours, too longer than they would actually get back to you, but they get back to you pretty quickly. And so next slide. This goes into our application process. So when you apply for a grant with the Arts Endowment, there's 3 levels that you go through with your application. Your first is a peer review panel. And this peer review is diverse in terms of geography, gender, ethnicity, and expertise. That's who sits on these panels. There's about 5 to 6 people on each panel. One person is a lay person on the panel, and that person is knowledgeable in the arts, but does not make a living from the arts. They review around 30 to 40 applications, and it takes about 5 weeks for them to get through all of the applications and their review and approvals. So then once that's completed, that goes to level 2, which is our National Council on the Arts. And our National Council on the Arts reviews all of the applications that the panels have gone through, and they make their recommendation and approvals, and then send that along to the 3rd level, which is our chairman. And the chairman has the final approval on all grants. And we're always looking for panelists. So below there, it says become a panelist. And that's the website link that you would go to on our website and fill out the form to become a panelist. It's a great way to learn the process. It's a great way to see what good and not so good applications look like, and what you as a person, as a panelist, are looking for. So if you do decide to fill out that form and you want to send me an email, which I'll give my email at the end, go ahead and email me, and then I can flag it to the right people in our office. So hopefully we can get you in the mix of being a panelist, which is an awesome opportunity. Okay, next slide. So we have 3 categories. We have grants for art projects, which if you have been around the National Endowment for the Arts for a while here, it used to be called Artworks. We've changed the name from Artworks to Grants for Art Projects. We have Our Town grants, and we have research grants. And these are our largest grants that we offer to nonprofit organizations, and they receive the bulk of our direct funding. Next slide. Grants for art projects, which, like I said before, was Artworks before that. We roughly give about 2,000 grants each year to organizations throughout the US. You must have a 3-year art history programming to be eligible to apply for a grant. And you also must be able to have a 1-to-1 non-federal cost match to your grant that you're applying for. And the application deadlines are in February and July of each year, and you can only choose one of those months to apply for a grant. You can only do it one time. So you can apply, if you apply in February, you cannot apply in July, and vice versa. We fund large and small projects, new and existing projects, and projects that takes place all over the United States and the 50 states, Washington, DC, and our US territories. And that's another stigma that the Arts Endowment has, is that we only fund large organizations like the Kennedy Center or the Met Gallery or Met Museum. It's not true. We do give grants to them, but we also are trying to get out in the field and get to every person as much as we can, especially in rural areas where grants are sometimes not applied for. And it might be because they don't have the bandwidth to apply for that grant, or they are afraid to apply for the grant, like I was mentioning before. So that's, again, a good reason why you should keep in touch with our staff. Next slide. The second portion of our categories is Our Town. Our Town is the National Endowment for the Arts Creative Placemaking Grant Program. These grants support projects that integrate the arts, culture, and design activities into efforts that strengthen communities by advancing local economic, physical, and social outcomes. So these grants range anywhere between $25,000 to $150,000. You have to have a local government and a nonprofit that teams up and applies for this Our Town grant, creative placemaking, and it's to like revitalize something in your town. You can go to our website and look up Our Town grants and see exactly hands-on what has happened and what they've taken a town from and made it into something spectacular, and utilizing like old mills and stuff like that. So it's really cool, and it's a really neat page to go through and flip through the different cities that have gotten and received Our Town grants. And their deadline is in August of each year. Next slide, please. we have research grants. These aim to examine the value and or impact of the arts. And the grants range from $10,000 to $30,000. And we also have grants that aim to test the causal or inferred causal impact of the arts. And these grants range from $30,000 to about $100,000. And their grant deadline is in March of each year. Next slide, please. Some eligibility requirements. You need a DUNS number, and I know the DUNS number is a fun subject to talk about, but you have to have a DUNS number to be identified, I guess. And in the future, the near future, it will be definitely marketed and publicized, but the DUNS number is going to change to a unique entity identifier number, which they'll explain everything about how that's going to switch over, but it's not happening just yet. But down the road it will. But you need a DUNS number, and you also need to be registered on grants.gov and sam.gov as well. Like I mentioned before, you also have to have a 3-year arts programming history to be eligible, and you have to have that 1-to-1 non-federal cost match. Not up front, but up to your, if you're asking for like $10,000 for a grant with the Arts Endowment, you have to be able to have a cost match of $10,000 in some form. I want to mention during CARES Act grants, this is obviously, CARES Act is finished. We're obviously hoping that we can get another form of package deal that will also help everyone, and hopefully the National Endowment for the Arts is included in the next round, if we can get that. But like I mentioned before, if you had applied for a grant with the Arts Endowment, you were able to also apply for CARES Act grants. And mainly like I said before, they were designed to help and save jobs, keep the lights on in these organizations, keep jobs current, so that we can just keep the arts going. So next slide, please. Organizations that we do fund are like nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3 organizations. We do school districts and nonprofit colleges and universities, such as historically Black colleges and universities, tribal colleges and universities, and Hispanic serving institutions. And by far, the majority of the Arts Endowment grants are awarded to nonprofit 501c3s, U.S. organizations, and they offer offer arts programming in the field. Next slide. Funding that our grants cannot be used for. So you cannot use it for general operating or seasonal support. And that did change during CARES Act. So typically you're not allowed to use your grant money towards general operating support or seasonal support. But since the CARES Act was designated to save jobs, that was waived, and you were able to use your CARES Act grant, if you received one, to keep the doors open, basically, and keep the lights on and jobs going. You cannot use it for the creation of new organizations, and you cannot use it for facility construction, purchase, or renovation. We do give grants to the design portion of that facility construction, purchase, and renovation. So if you have a building and you're renovating it, we won't put money towards the actual cost of renovating it, but we will put money towards the design portions of it, which is one of our 15 art disciplines that we offer. And we don't give individual grants to schools. We can fund the school districts, but we don't fund schools in general, just individual. And there's a few other ones there, and they're also listed on our website too. So you can go to arts.gov to find those. Next slide. Some helpful hints. Again, grants.gov and SAMS.gov. You may feel like you already have the registration there. Just make sure that it's current and up to date so that you don't have to go through that process one more time. And because I know that our application process is pretty daunting. There's a lot of paperwork, and we don't want you to have to continue doing more work if you're not signed up with grants.gov and grants.gov. Contact staff with questions. I've mentioned this already. One story that I do remember is that when I first came into the Arts Endowment, I would attend several meetings, and a couple people came in late to a couple of the meetings for the disciplines, and they apologized when they first came in, and here they were on the phone with one of the grantees that were applying for a grant, and they were asking our specialists questions about the application process. And it was eye-opening and cool for me to hear them tell stories about their families. They knew their pets' names. They knew everything about them. So it just goes to show how personable and how much we want to work for you to be successful in the application process. So please don't be afraid of people in Washington. Don't be afraid of us. We're there to help you. We want to help you. Ask a friend to proofread your application for typos and clarity. I know we've all been working on a document and we think that we have it down to perfection, but just have someone that's not part of your project description and your application process, have them read it and see if what you're talking about in your application resonates with them as well, and also for the typos and clarity. And tell a story in your application. Why this project, why now, and what will change as a result. And you can also always ask for feedback on either recommended grants or rejected grants. We always give out feedback on those grants. So call us and ask, why did I not receive this grant? What was the panel looking for? And what didn't I offer in my application? So always call us. Next slide, please. This is a screenshot of our website. Obviously the picture changes, but you see there where the tabs are, like home, about, and grants. If you're applying for a grant, you would obviously go to the grants tab, and in the drop down, you would hit apply for a grant. And then that just continually takes you through the process of applying for a grant. You pick your discipline that you want to apply for, and then it gives you all the guidelines, and it just takes you step by step. And again, if you have questions, call us. Another tab that I want to point out is the artistic fields. That's where you would find the 15 art disciplines that we do offer. And that's also where you could click on the 15 art disciplines to find out a contact person's name and email and phone number and all of that. Next slide. Some initiatives that we have with the National Endowment for the Arts. So we have really good initiatives that we have. So the first one is Creative Forces. This is where we use arts therapy to help our wounded soldiers get through the process of post-traumatic stress syndrome, and it's shown to have great impacts on our guys and women. I personally think it's a great initiative, and we also have some videos online at arts.gov that you can go and watch and see firsthand about the stories of these guys going through arts therapy as part of their rehabilitation. Now, during COVID, unfortunately, we can't do in-person arts therapy classes, but we have been doing telehealth classes with our soldiers. The next one would be Blue Star Museums. This also is a great one for our military, It's where about 2,000 museums across the United States take part in this initiative, and they give free admission to the active duty and their immediate families into the museums. And that typically takes place between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So you can take full advantage of the 2,000 different museums that do participate. Again, unfortunately, because of COVID, we had to suspend that one, but we're looking forward to hopefully bringing it back in 2021 because it's a great, great program. We also have Arts Big Read. That's where you can apply for grants for your town to have it's basically like a book club. And there's like 30 selections that you choose from, and you have a book club basically. We have Shakespeare in American Communities. That's where we have professional artists, professional theater artists that come in and teach to middle and high school students about Shakespeare, and they do educational activities. And we also go to juvenile detention centers and do the same project with them in the juvenile detention centers. So it's also a very good project. We also have Poetry Out Loud. Unfortunately, this year we had to cancel our national finals in Washington, D.C. due to COVID. But every state was able to submit a video of their state or regional winner. And typically the winner in the national competition gets a $20,000 check for their great presentation and recitation of their poem. So instead, the National Endowment for the Arts and the Poetry Foundation gave each of the state finalists or regional winners $1,000, which was very nice. And we're working on 2021 Poetry Out Loud because I think it's going to look a little different than it did in the past. But I also really like this initiative as well. Next slide, please. So arts and economy, this is a big one. I don't know if everyone's been reading up on this, but I'm sure you have. When we were in a great working economy, the arts played a huge role, and it still does play a huge role in the economy. It made about $877.8 billion, or 4.5% of the nation's GDP. That's huge. And then you go to the right side of this slide, and you see our research that we did at the beginning of the pandemic. From March to April, the arts, entertainment, and recreation lost jobs at a 42.4% job loss, which is second to the accommodations and food services. So that just shows how much the arts play a role in our economy and how we need to get back to work. And again, the CARES Act, I know that it only touched 855 organizations, but we were able to save so many different jobs. And that was our main priority, was to save jobs in the arts field. With that, the next slide is my contact information. And like I said before, you can always contact me. If you have a question for one of the discipline directors that you can't get a hold of, or just have a question in general, please email me. I'm sure the Ohio Arts Council can forward my email out to anybody that wants it. And just email me and I will try to get you in touch with the person that you're looking for, or answer the questions that you may have that I may not be able to answer as well. So with that, I would like to turn the presentation over to Justin Nigro with the Ohio Arts Council. So thank you so much for having me here today.
And thank you, Josh, for joining us here this morning. We really appreciate all of the information you shared and helping to make your work at the NEA seem so accessible here to us in Ohio. It's really great that our state has so many wonderful arts and cultural assets, and you get to be in the same virtual room, I guess, with a lot of our folks who are doing really great work on the ground. So thanks again, Josh. Good morning, everybody. I'm Justin Niagara, the Operations and Public Affairs Director for the Ohio Arts Council, and I'm going to share with you today a little bit about our grants and resources and a little bit of, prelude or preambulatory information on who we are and what we do. I was looking through the attendees list and saw a lot of familiar names, not faces, unfortunately, this morning, but a lot of familiar names and some new names too. So hopefully, this will be valuable for you to learn about the types of grants and other resources that we offer to the field here in Ohio. Next, thanks, Katie. So our mission, which has been around for a while, is that we fund and support quality arts experiences to strengthen Ohio communities in three ways: culturally, educationally, and economically. Those three words really still ring true when we are making the case to policymakers about why public funding for the arts is critical and foundational to the work that arts organizations and artists and arts educators do. Those are the three types of stories we tell. Many are interested in what it means in terms of jobs, which you heard a little bit about from Josh in the CARES Act. Some are more interested in arts education and what it means for our children or for our seniors. What arts learning opportunities exist. And then culturally, art and its intrinsic value and worth. Today, that's as important as ever as we navigate these times of, being socially distant and physically distant and social unrest and really difficult questions that we're wrestling with as a society. We talk a lot about the way the arts can be healing and bring us together and help us to get through these, choppy waters together. So all three really remain foundational to the work that we do. Next slide, Katie. I want to fixate on this slide a little bit. This tells you kind of in a snapshot what our agency is and how we're funded and what we do with those funds. So at the top of this current budget cycle at the state of Ohio, we budget every 2 years. We had earned an historic amount of money, $34.5 million over 2 years in the fiscal 2021 state budget. As the economic ramifications of the pandemic started coming down on states, Ohio was not alone here, compared to our peers across the nation, but we suffered some state budget reductions. The state derives its income from sales taxes, income taxes, and those of course plummeted as there were mass shutterings and the like. So you see that appropriation has come down to about 30 million. Not all that is reductions from grants. Administratively, we weathered a lot of different ways to cut expenses, whether it was pay cuts or hiring freezes, travel freezes, contract freezes, you name it. We kind of went through it with you all when it came time to, start focusing and honing the work that we did onto the critical things we could offer through the pandemic. So that $4.5 million that you see is not all reductions to grants, but it reflects some shared sacrifice basically from our staff, because we've been trying to insulate the field at this really critical time when you all are trying to keep your doors, either open or planning to reopen still, shelter you from any sorts of reductions to grants and so forth. So that's kind of where we are in terms of our state budget. The federal picture is very bright right now, so thank you, Josh. We typically receive more than $1 million annually from the National Endowment for the Arts. We are one of the states that's very unique in that we reinvest all of those dollars as grants. We retain none for our own administrative expenses, so all those dollars are put right back to work in the field. In addition, this cycle, because of the CARES Act, we received $517,000, a little over $517,000 in CARES Act funding from the NEA. And again, all those dollars were reinvested directly in the field. We didn't retain anything for our own payroll or administrative expenses. And those CARES Act dollars helped to mitigate some of the other budget reductions that we had to make as a consequence of the state's actions to get through the pandemic. So we're grateful for those dollars and for that support and for everything that the NEA does here in Ohio. With those dollars, you then leverage them into a very big impact. $56 are matched across every $1 of OAC funding. So it really leverages a lot of local support, whether that's foundational or you know, ticket sales back when we were able to sell tickets more easily, right? You know, philanthropy, all sorts of different sources of funding there. So you make that impact happen, and you make our return on investment really great, so that when we tell the story to policymakers that public funding matters and here's why, here's the multiplier effect, the story is very easy to tell with the great work that you're doing to invest our grant wisely. And so just this July, we issued almost 700 grants to Ohio artists, Ohio nonprofits, schools, different entities that have applied to us for funding. That is when most of our funding is authorized by the Ohio Arts Council Board, which I'll talk about in a minute, is July. So we'll go a little bit through that cycle as we present here today. Next slide, Katie. Our state arts plan has been anchored around these four pillars, these four verbs of, you know, these action words that kind of inform everything that we do and try to do: invest, engage, innovate, lead. They've been around for about 5 years or so. Our executive director, Donna Collins, along with leadership and our board, kind of altered the plan around these very simple sort of concepts so that people could see at a glance the things that we're really aiming to do. And that carries true today. We'll talk a little bit more about our strategic planning process at the very end of the presentation this morning, but keep those in mind, I guess, as you think about the different ways that we can serve you. And then our board, which I alluded to, again, we're an agency of state government, so we are governed by a 15-member board appointed by the governor from all parts of Ohio, and then the legislature also makes 4 appointments, 2 from each chamber, 1 from each major party, and they help to basically set our course, whether it's making policy, issuing grants. They are the final authority to issue grants. They have really been instrumental in making sure that your voices are heard within state government. And then, of course, I mentioned our executive leadership. So Donna Collins, our executive director, and then Dan Katona, who many of you may know from the grant side of things, as our deputy director. So with that, I'll talk a little bit about the different ways that we serve the public. We'll start with arts organizations, nonprofits, and the various grant programs that serve them. Next slide, Katie. I left this quote in here because I just think it's really strips away everything else. This is what we do, right? So operating support is helping the Lincoln Theater serve the community through education and artistic programs. And it also provides an important stamp of approval for the significant work we do. One thing we hear from folks who are our grantees is that not only is it the funding that matters to us, but it's also that sort of good housekeeping seal of approval that means something when it comes time to make the case for leveraging other funds from other sources. So we're proud that you're able to, you know, use that stamp, so to speak, to wield it and get more funding from your community. Next slide, Katie. We split the state into 3 regions to serve you. So you'll see them here highlighted in the Central Ohio and Southeastern region, which covers the bulk of Appalachia, not quite all of it, but is Brianna Dance. Northeast Ohio, including Cleveland, Akron, my hometown of Ashtabula, Canton, Youngstown, that's Janelle Hallett. And then Jim Sakosh covers the western half of the state, which includes everything from Toledo all the way down to Cincinnati, and then western and north central Ohio. Like Josh said, never be afraid to contact your state arts council. There is no mark on your application if you apply to funds for us that you call Jim because you didn't know how to fill out some certain field and now we don't think you know what you're doing. We think you know what you're doing. We want to be there to help you. And if anything, it helps you be more competitive when it comes time for panels to review applications against you know, the funds available. So never be afraid to contact any of our coordinators because they really have you in mind and can help you break down any sorts of barriers that you might feel exist when it comes time to apply for funding from a governmental source. We like to think that our grants making process is streamlined, easy, accessible, not too hard to navigate, but you know, it still can be daunting to go through something if it's your first time or even if it's been a while. You know, we're here to help you. So please keep that in mind. And then we'll start with, we have basically 4 general areas of support that we offer to the field in terms of our grants. The one I start with here that we start with here is project support, and that covers 2 different grant categories. Art Start, I lead with first because it's kind of our front door, right? This is the oftentimes the first grant program that a new grantee or a new applicant to our agency will encounter, because it's basically general project support for an organization. This isn't so much about operations, but it's about a thing that you're doing that you think would merit funding from the state. You'll see that most of our deadlines happen in the springtime once. This is the latest deadline, I believe, almost the latest deadline, I think, of most of our grant programs, so April 1st. And the grants are between $1,000 and $5,000. So they tend to be a little bit smaller compared to some of the bigger operating grants, but they still help you establish grant history, grant funding history with our agency, which again opens the door for other types of support from us, like operating support, which we'll talk about later on. So that's the Art Start program. That's the one that we tend to encourage first-time applicants to apply for if they're an arts organization and have an interesting project coming up. Arts Next is designed to fund more innovative, groundbreaking types of projects, things that are disruptives, things that are transformative, things that pick up a practice from one sector and apply it to the arts sector. So the grants are a little bit more challenging in that they require some bigger thinking and extra creativity. Luckily, we are in the arts, so we're all full of creativity all the time, right? But that's what Arts Next is designed to serve, to kind of foment innovation throughout the state of Ohio. The grant amounts are bigger than, as a result, between $5,000 and then a top level of $20,000. And again, that deadline is in March. Next slide, Katie. Then we have some other programs that tend to have more rolling deadlines depending on the availability of funds. Capacity building is a popular way to establish grant history with us as well. That can be everything from attending a virtual conference, since we don't have as many in-person conferences anymore, to planning, board development, those types of tasks that you do as you try to establish a campaign, for instance, even a capital campaign. While we fund operating support, a lot of folks, are thinking about capital and find a home here. Building cultural diversity is also a really important program to our agency. It's funding for culturally diverse organizations who are authentically diverse, so the board is reflective of the population that they're serving. And again, these are rolling deadline programs, so the eligibility, it's more of a, kind of an open time frame in terms of applying for those programs as soon as the window opens on our online grant system. Next slide, Katie. So that's the end of our project support grants. We turn now to operating support, and this is kind of the bread and butter of what we do. These are our major grant programs. So once you've established grant history with us, so you've received funding 2 out of the last 4 years is how we define that at the Ohio Arts Council, you become eligible for longer term grants. So sustainability is for larger and mid-sized organizations. These are for organizations with budgets of greater than $50,000. And it's sustainable funding. So these are 4-year grants. So they have, a good chunk of time built into them. The first year is the on-year, and then there are very short updates that get submitted for the next 3 years. But this, once you are able to obtain a sustainability grant, it should be there, it should be reliable, it should be a source of funding for you that you can count on to cover anything from payroll to utility bills and the like. And so that's where we hope folks who, for instance, start an Art Start, prove that they can be good stewards of state funds, can go. Similarly, Arts Access is for those who have budgets that are smaller than $50,000, and those are shorter grants, 2-year grants. But again, they have more of a lengthier time frame to them. Next slide, Katie. So our next population that we serve, and this covers kind of the ambit of arts education, are students and educators, which are really important, especially these days where schools are either in hybrid models or completely online or trying to assemble in person. We're finding that arts educators, teaching artists are being very creative in finding ways to still get in touch with students and stimulate their learning and make sure that we're seeing successful outcomes for all involved. So our 2 arts learning coordinators are Chiquita Mullins-Lee and Jared Small. And again, they're always available to help you navigate these various arts education programs. The two that we'll start to mention here, Arts Partnership is kind of our general project support for specific to arts education, specific to those types of projects. It's again a spring deadline, March 1st, and often those projects are collaborative in nature, hence the partnership part of that grant program. Our other and very popular arts learning program is Teach Arts Ohio. And what these are arts residencies, teaching artist residencies for school children all throughout the state of Ohio. They can, be short, long, it just depends on the type of experience that the teaching artist and the teachers and the administrators decide to build out for their student population in that school. And this helps to defray the cost of artist fees for the teaching artists who conduct the work and the residencies with the students. It's been a great success story. We've been very proud to have made scaled this program in recent years, and we keep seeing scaling happen despite the fact that schools are in such an uncertain spot. That did not really affect our application numbers this cycle. For instance, I think teachers and teaching artists are finding ways to serve students however they can in this environment, and it's so important right now too, as it really helps all other parts of education when there's a strong arts presence. So that's Teach Arts Ohio in a nutshell. Next slide, Katie. As Josh alluded to, Poetry Out Loud might look a little different this upcoming cycle, but this is our shared initiative with the NEA that all states participate in, the National High School Poetry Recitation Contest. We have semifinals in Ohio. We're all still kind of figuring out with the NEA how that'll look here in the fall. And I know Chiquita in particular is hard at work on figuring out how to best serve those students who have really come to use this program as a way to master public speaking, gain confidence. It's just a wonderful initiative if you are involved in the schools and are interested. Yeah, Chiquita's our point person on that and can tell you a lot more soon as we figure out how to make it happen this cycle. Next slide, Katie. And then artists. There would be no arts organizations without artists, right? They're the ones who create the work, create the performance, and make it all happen. So we fund artists through the Ohio Arts Council, and not all states do. So we're proud that we're able to offer funding to artists who are seeking to, in a couple different ways, gain some attention, recognition, promotion for their work. Kathy Signorino is our Arts Programs and Percent for Art Director, and Katie Davis is the coordinator in that program. So again, you'll see their contact information. In this environment, I think we're listing email addresses. That's always easier, just given that we're all, like so many people, working remotely and still responsive quicker, basically, to email than other forms of communication. But we're still picking up the phone too. So if you see our phone numbers on the website, give us a ring. We will answer you there too. We have a few different ways that we funded individual artists. Individual Excellence Awards are probably the ones that come to mind first in a lot of ways. The deadline is upcoming for that, actually, September 1st. And we are currently in our visual year. We kind of have a year that steers more toward the visual and a year that steers more toward written forms. So you'll see that in the even numbered years: crafts, design arts, illustration, interdisciplinary and collaborative and performance art, media arts, photography, and then visual arts, 2D, 3D. These are awards for past bodies of work that are submitted for panel review and then go to our board for final review and approval. We also have the Artists with Disabilities Access Program because, we believe in accessibility at the agency. And so we have a special program that, again, has some rolling deadlines around it, where artists with disabilities can apply for funding for anything from gear that they need or equipment or tools to help them create work too. And then lastly, traditional arts apprenticeships. This is kind of houses some of our folk and traditional arts program. So these are folks who are masters working with apprentices in most cases, and this ranges the gamut from, you can see in the pictures, anything from the Chinese zither to traditional folk music. So It's a really important program to preserve kind of all sorts of different types of cultural heritage and pass on skills, you know, oftentimes intergenerationally. Ohio Heritage Fellowships are, in a lot of ways, like the Individual Excellence Awards for folk and traditional arts, except that they're very competitive, typically just 1 or 2 in a year, and those happen in the categories of performing arts, material culture, or community leadership. And so you can see pictured a couple of our past Heritage Fellow winners. And then we also administer the Ohio Poet Laureate program. Carrie Gunter Seymour was just named the Ohio Poet Laureate for 2020-2021. She is, I think, a 9th generation Appalachian Ohioan, and I think 3rd generation from Athens County. So she's really interested in doing a lot of work to serve the entire state, but she certainly knows her home turf well. And she's got some interesting plans lined up to offer virtual events and workshops and help folks with addiction and all sorts of different initiatives that she has, as well as elevating the art of poetry more broadly. So we're happy to have Carrie begin her laureateship, and looking forward to the things that she'll be doing. Percent for Art is kind of our public art program. So this is a program that kind of swept across the nation in the 90s. Ours came into law in 1990, whereby if the state makes a capital appropriation of above $4 million, that triggers a requirement that 1% is devoted to public art within that appropriation. And so we work as the liaison between the places where those capital expenses are happening and artists who'd like to apply for that program. And different calls will go out if you're an artist, and on our list, you'll often see a Percent for Art call go out for proposals. So, you know, feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to be added to that list. We want to make sure that we're reaching you if you are an artist and are interested in submitting proposals for public art. It's been a very popular program, lots of different projects, hundreds of projects all over the state now that have been funded through the Percent for Art program with our facilitation. And then last, but of course not least, is what we do for the greater public, for Ohioans. We offer all sorts of different professional learning opportunities. Katie here runs our webinar series, which covers all sorts of different popular topics, and from services for artists to best practices for budgeting in a pandemic. And so it's been really valuable. We were offering it before the pandemic. We continue to offer it now, and it's only gained popularity given the fact that most of us are sitting here on Zoom calls for some part of our day. So please check out our free webinars. They're all posted on YouTube afterwards, so you can view recordings at any time if you can't make a specific time slot. We reinstituted our Arts Impact Ohio conference that we were going to have our 3rd one in May, but obviously things changed and things had to change given the public health situation. So we are currently in the midst of planning that and figuring out, is it going to be in person? If things improve, will it go virtual? So please keep in touch, and we'll be in communication on that as we stand up plans to make sure that we are still providing professional development for the field and connection for the field, which is something we hear a lot about. Next slide, Katie. The Governor's Awards for the Arts, again, boy, it was I think going to be March 25th this year, and it was the week before that everything started shutting down, so we had to make some very quick plans to unwind that event. But we did it. We still have a great set of winners this cycle. And we look forward to celebrating them at some point. It's an important event, certainly because we get such a great cross-section of Ohioans present, whether it's arts administrators, arts leaders, philanthropists, lots of lawmakers, state lawmakers, and oftentimes the governor. So it really matters for us to make our case for public funding for the arts. So hopefully we'll be able to do that again soon. Next slide, Katie. And then the Ohio Arts Council's Rife Gallery, currently not accepting visitors because it's located in the Vern Rife Center for the Government and the Arts in downtown Columbus. However, they have extensive online virtual collections. I think just about every exhibition they've had is digitized now on our website, so you can view past exhibitions, artist talks are streamed, workshops, so you can still get the same content that you would get in person, even if you're just sitting at your desk or couch, wherever you like to view art in your home. So our current exhibition is online. It's Women to Watch, Paper Routes, in collaboration with the National Museum for Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. The Ohio Advisory Group helped to curate and plan that exhibition. Prior to that, we had Ohio Diaspora, which was in collaboration with the National Afro-American Museum in Wilberforce. So we've had some really wonderful exhibitions this year, and I encourage you to take a look if you haven't yet. It's a way for us to feature Ohio artists, right, and provide another outlet and resource for artists to, enhance their profiles, but also for the public to see, that state government cares, right, cares about art and public art. So we look forward to the day that the gallery will reopen, but at the moment, please check out everything that you can online. And that concludes my bit of the presentation. Thank you all for your patience this morning at the onset while we were getting the PowerPoint and everything stood up. We appreciate everything that you do for the arts here in Ohio, and thank you all for joining us here today.